The night sky over the forest was full of fire. Strange lights cut through the darkness, and the sound of explosions shook the ground. Hidden among the tall trees, a young girl with silver skin and bright eyes stumbled forward. She was small, her steps weak, and her breathing heavy. She was not human. She was an alien princess, though on this night she was only a child running for her life. Behind her, broken pieces of a ship burned like falling stars. The crash had separated her from her guards. She could still hear faint voices calling her name, but they were far away. Clutching her side, she pressed on. The wound hurt, and every step made her feel weaker. She tripped and fell to the ground. For a moment she wanted to close her eyes and give up. But then, through the smoke and leaves, she saw a figure small, thin, and very different from her people. It was a boy. The boy, no older than 10, had been exploring the forest that night. His name was Tom, and he often wandered out after dark when he could not sleep. He had never seen anything like this: fire falling from the sky, strange machines, and now a glowing-eyed girl on the ground. At first, Tom froze. He wanted to run back home. But then he heard her soft cry. She looked lost, hurt, and very afraid. His heart told him he could not leave her there. Tom slowly stepped closer. "Are you okay?" he asked in a shaky voice. The alien girl blinked at him. She did not understand his words, but she saw kindness in his face. She tried to speak, but only a soft, broken sound came out. Tom knelt beside her. He noticed the dark mark on her side, where she was bleeding. It scared him, but he remembered how his mother once wrapped his hand when he had cut it. He quickly tore a piece of cloth from his shirt and pressed it gently against her wound. The girl winced but did not pull away. She let him help her. "Don't worry," Tom whispered, though he wasn't sure if she understood. "I'll help you." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, two children from different worlds who should never have met. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the trees. Strange figures moved in the distance, their armor shining, their voices harsh. They were searching for the girl. She knew they were enemies who wanted her gone. Fear filled her eyes, and she clutched Tom's arm. Tom didn't know who those figures were, but he could tell they were dangerous. He grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her up. "This way," he said, pointing toward the thicker part of the forest. Together they ran. Branches scratched at their faces, roots pulled at their feet, but they kept moving. The enemy voices grew louder, then faded, then grew louder again. At last, Tom led her to an old hollow tree he often used as a hiding place when playing. He helped her crawl inside, then followed. They sat close in the dark, holding their breath as the armored figures passed nearby. The ground shook with their heavy steps, but they did not find the children. The girl leaned against Tom, exhausted. For the first time that night, she felt safe. After a while, Tom whispered, "You're gonna be okay. I'll keep you safe." She did not understand his words, but the tone in his voice was clear. She gave a small nod and closed her eyes, letting sleep take her. Tom stayed awake, keeping watch. He felt afraid, but also proud. Somehow, he knew this moment was important, though he did not know why. By dawn, the forest grew quiet again. A strange humming sound filled the air, and bright lights shone between the trees. A new group of figures appeared, different from the first. Their armor was bright and their movements calm. The girl stirred and her eyes lit up with relief. These were her people. Before Tom could say anything, the rescuers lifted her gently and spoke in a language he could not understand. She reached out one hand toward Tom as they carried her away. Tom stood frozen, watching as the girl disappeared into the glowing light. In seconds, both she and her rescuers were gone, leaving only the quiet forest behind. The boy rubbed his eyes. It all felt like a dream. He returned home, keeping the secret to himself. To everyone else, it was just another night. But deep inside, Tom knew he had met someone special. Years later, he would almost forget the details. But sometimes, when he looked at the stars, he remembered the strange girl with silver skin and bright eyes. And somewhere across the galaxy, that girl, now a princess safe with her people, never forgot the human boy who had saved her life. Many years passed since the night in the forest. The silver-skinned girl grew far away from Earth, among shining towers and endless stars. Her name was Alira, and she was not just any child, she was the heir to a great empire. Her people remembered the battles of her youth, the danger that had almost ended her life, and the hidden strength she showed in surviving. From that time onward, she carried inside her a secret image, the human boy who helped her. His face was carved in her memory like a star in the night sky. Alira became wiser as she grew. She studied history, politics, and the art of war. She listened to her teachers, but she often remembered the boy's simple kindness. Why had he helped her when she was a stranger? Why risk himself for someone different? That question guided her. She wanted to lead with both strength and compassion. When her father, the old king, finally passed his crown, the council announced her as Queen Alira. Her people cheered, though not all agreed. Some noble families wanted power for themselves. Others whispered that Alira's softer heart would make her weak. But Alira stood tall before them and said, "A ruler must have both wisdom and mercy. Without mercy, wisdom turns cold. Without wisdom, mercy turns blind. We must have both." Her words spread through the empire, and many believed in her. Still, one thought never left her mind: the human boy. Her advisors told her that humans were a small, primitive race. They lived on a quiet blue planet called Earth, far behind in technology. The council laughed when she mentioned her old memory. "Your Majesty," one of them said, "surely you imagine this tale. No human child could have been there. They are simple creatures, far weaker than us." But Alira shook her head. "I saw him. I felt his courage. And I owe my life to him." The council bowed, but in secret they dismissed her words as a childish dream. Meanwhile, on Earth, Tom had grown into a man. He worked at a small repair shop in his town, fixing broken machines, radios, and tools. He was quiet, friendly, and humble. People liked him, though no one thought him extraordinary. Tom himself did not feel extraordinary. He had no big dreams, no riches, no fame. Sometimes he wondered if life had something more for him. At night, he still looked at the stars. Some part of him remembered the silver-skinned girl, though the memory often felt distant, like a story he once imagined. One evening, Tom sat outside his small house, watching the moon rise. He thought of how small Earth was compared to the endless sky. He had no idea that far away, among those stars, a queen was thinking of him. Back in the palace of crystal and light, Queen Alira often walked to her private chamber and looked at a star map. Her finger would hover over the small dot marked Earth. She whispered softly, "Where are you, human? Do you still live? Do you remember me?" At last, she made a decision. She could not spend her life wondering. She wanted to find him. Alira summoned her closest guards and a secret circle of explorers. "Search for the human," she commanded. "Find the boy who once saved me." The guards bowed, though some looked doubtful. "Your Majesty," one of them said, "even if he lives, many years have passed. How can we find one human among billions?" Alira's eyes shone with quiet fire. "Do not underestimate him. I remember his eyes. If he lives, I will know." The search began quietly. Scouts visited Earth in hidden ships, disguising themselves to walk among humans. They learned human languages, customs, and ways of life. What they found surprised them. Humans were not as weak as the council believed. They were inventive, adaptable, and stubborn in the face of hardship. Though their machines were simple compared to starfaring empires, their creativity was unmatched. Reports reached the Queen: humans survived in deserts, ice, mountains, and deep seas. They built tools from little, solved problems in clever ways, and dreamed of reaching the stars. Alira felt her heart stir. "Yes," she whispered. "This is why he helped me. This is why humanity is special." Meanwhile, Tom began to notice strange things. At night, he sometimes saw flickers of light above the forest, like shadows of ships. Once, his old radio caught a signal that was not in any human language. And sometimes, when walking home, he felt as if unseen eyes were watching him. He shook his head, thinking it was his imagination. Life went on as normal. But far away, the search was closing in. One report finally reached Queen Alira: "Your Majesty, we have found a man on Earth. His face matches the description you gave. His name is Tom." The Queen stood silent for a long moment, her heart beating faster. The child who had once held her hand in the forest was alive. Her council warned her not to involve herself personally. "You are a queen," they argued. "Do not waste time on an old memory." But Alira had already decided. She would go herself. For she knew this was not just about memory. It was about destiny. The quiet town where Tom lived had always felt ordinary. Streets were lined with small houses, children played in the fields, and the nights were calm under a sky full of stars. But slowly, small changes began to appear, changes only Tom seemed to notice. It began with the radio in his repair shop. One afternoon, as he fixed an old device, the radio caught a strange signal. It was not music, not words, but a series of tones and patterns. They repeated again and again, almost like a message. Tom adjusted the knobs, but the sound faded as quickly as it came. He frowned, confused. "That's not from any station around here," he muttered. Later, walking home through the forest path he often used, he thought he saw a flicker of light between the trees. At first, he believed it was a reflection or maybe a firefly. But when he looked closer, it seemed like a faint shimmer, almost like a figure watching him. "Hello," Tom called out, but the forest answered only with silence. He shook his head. "I must be tired." What Tom did not know was that he truly was being watched. High above Earth, hidden behind clouds and stars, small alien scout ships hovered in silence. Inside one of them, two scouts studied a glowing screen. On the screen was Tom's face, captured from far away. "This is the one scout whispered. "He matches the description Her Majesty gave." The other frowned. "He looks ordinary." "Ordinary does not mean unimportant," the first replied. "Remember, he once saved her life. And the Queen believes in him." The scouts moved carefully. They dared not reveal themselves yet. Instead, they followed Tom's movements from a distance, studying his habits, his work, and his life. Days passed. Tom grew more uneasy. He felt eyes on him when he walked through the marketplace. At night, strange hums filled the air. Once, his dog barked wildly at the sky, though Tom saw nothing there. One evening, Tom's friend Mark laughed when Tom told him, "You read too many stories, Tom. Nobody is watching you. Maybe you just need sleep." Tom forced a smile, but deep down, he knew it wasn't only his imagination. Something was happening, and it came from the stars. Far away, in her shining palace, Queen Alira received reports from the scouts. They spoke of Tom's quiet life, his humble work, and his simple habits. "Does he remember you, Your Majesty?" one scout asked. Alira's eyes softened. "I do not know. But I remember him." Some of her advisors tried again to stop her. "Why risk yourself for one human? Our empire has greater matters: trade, war, politics. Leave this search to memory. But Alira shook her head. This is not only about memory. This is about truth. A single act of kindness changed me. If humanity carries such spirit, then they are not small. They are important. Meanwhile, Tom kept noticing small signs. In his shop, a customer left behind a coin he had never seen before, metal shaped with strange symbols, glowing faintly under light. When Tom asked about it, the customer had already vanished. Another night, while walking home, he saw footprints in the mud beside his path. They were not from any shoe he knew. They were longer, sharper, as if made by someone not human. Tom crouched and touched the marks. The earth was still soft, meaning whoever left them had been there moments before. "Who's out here?" he called, his voice steady though his heart raced. The forest gave no reply. But high above, hidden among the stars, a scout whispered to another, "He senses us." The next day, Tom sat outside, staring at the horizon. He thought of his childhood memory, the strange night when he had met the glowing-eyed girl. He had told no one about it, not even his parents. For years, he wondered if it was only a dream. But now, with all these signs, he began to believe it had been real. "Maybe, she's still out there," he whispered to himself. He had no idea how right he was. In her palace, Queen Alira received the final message she had been waiting for: "Your Majesty, the human lives? We have followed him closely. He is the one." Alira stood from her throne, her eyes shining with determination. "Then it is time. I will go to him myself." Her council gasped. "Majesty, you cannot. A queen does not walk among such beings without protection." "I will not hide behind walls," Alira replied firmly. "He once protected me when I was helpless. Now I will meet him face to face." And so the decision was made. While Tom lived his ordinary life, repairing machines and wondering about the strange events around him, a ship larger than any he could imagine was already moving through the stars, heading for Earth. The queen of a great empire was coming to meet the human boy who had once saved her life. The night was quiet in Tom's town. The wind rustled the trees, and the stars shone above, clear and bright. Tom had just finished closing his repair shop when he saw a strange light moving across the sky. At first, he thought it was a meteor, but it grew larger, slower, and steady. A soft hum filled the air. The light grew so bright that shadows danced on the ground. Tom froze, feeling a mixture of fear and awe. The townspeople began to notice, stepping outside their homes and staring upward. Then, a massive ship descended from the sky. It was unlike anything Tom had ever seen: smooth, shining metal, shaped like a crescent moon with lights glowing along its edges. It hovered silently over the town, then slowly touched the ground without making a single sound. People gasped. Some screamed. Others ran for cover. Tom stayed rooted to the spot, his eyes wide. A door opened on the ship, glowing from within. A figure stepped out. Tom could hardly believe what he saw. It was her. Silver skin, bright eyes, and an aura of quiet power. Queen Alira. The girl he had helped all those years ago now stood before him as a full-grown queen. Her robes shimmered in the moonlight, flowing like liquid light. She walked gracefully toward him, but there was something gentle in her gaze. Tom's mouth went dry. "It can't be," he whispered. Alira stopped a few feet away and knelt down slightly, lowering herself to his height. "Tom," she said softly, her voice melodic and firm, "do you remember me?" Tom shook his head, confused. I don't. I mean, yes, maybe. I was just a boy." Alira smiled. "You were more than a boy. You saved my life. Do you remember the forest? The night of the fire?" Tom's mind raced. Pieces of memory flickered: a glowing girl, his hands pressing cloth to a wound, Shadows chasing her, the sound of her breathing as he guided her through the trees. "Yes," he finally said, voice trembling. "I remember. I think I remember now." The queen stood fully upright, her eyes shining with quiet relief. "I have never forgotten you. You are the reason I live, the reason I became who I am today." The townspeople stared in awe. Some whispered, "Who is she?" Others stared silently, unsure if they should step closer. Tom's heart pounded. He wanted to ask questions, but words failed him. Instead, he looked at her and felt a strange connection, like meeting a long-lost friend he did not know he had. Alira gestured for him to follow her. "Come with me," she said. "I want to show you who I have become, and who we might become together." Tom hesitated. His life had been simple and predictable. He fixed machines, helped neighbors, and lived quietly. But now, before him stood a queen from another world, someone he had saved as a child and who remembered him. Something inside told him that he could not refuse. He nodded slowly. "All right. I'll come." As he stepped toward the ship, Alira smiled warmly. "Do not be afraid. You are safe with me." The townspeople watched as the two walked together toward the glowing vessel. The ship's door closed behind them, leaving the quiet town under the stars once more. Inside the ship, Tom marveled at the technology. Smooth floors glowed beneath his feet, walls shimmered with light, and holographic images floated in the air. Machines moved silently, and the air smelled faintly sweet, like flowers from another world. Alira guided him through the corridors. "I have wanted to meet you for a long time," she said. "Even as a child, I knew your courage. Even as a queen, I remember your kindness." Tom shook his head in disbelief. "I didn't do much. I just helped you." Alira stopped and faced him, her eyes steady. "You did everything. A simple act of bravery can change the course of a life. You saved me when I was helpless, and that gave me hope. That hope made me strong." Tom could feel the weight of her words. For the first time, he understood that his actions had mattered in a way far beyond anything he had imagined. The ship hummed softly as it prepared to leave Earth. Tom looked back at his town through the viewports. The lights of his home glimmered below, small and familiar. He felt a pang of longing but also excitement. Alira noticed. "You can return anytime. Earth will always be your home. But for now, there is much I want to show you, much you need to know." Tom nodded. He could feel that his life had changed forever. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. The ship lifted silently into the sky, leaving the Earth behind. Tom felt a strange mix of fear, wonder, and anticipation. He was no longer just a man in a quiet town, he was part of something far greater. And Queen Alira, the child he had saved years ago, now trusted him to walk beside her into the future. The ship glided silently through space, leaving Earth behind. Tom stood at a large viewport, staring at the stars, feeling both amazed and small. Every light seemed to stretch forever, and the planets glowed like jewels. He could not believe he was traveling with a queen from another world, someone he had once only remembered as a strange, glowing-eyed child. Queen Alira walked beside him. "The galaxy is bigger than you can imagine," she said softly. "And my people face many challenges. That is why I wanted you to come with me." Tom turned to her. "Challenges? I don't know if I can help. I fix radios and machines, that's all." Alira smiled kindly. "It is not the tools that matter, Tom. It is the mind and the heart. Even small ideas can change great outcomes. You have already shown courage and kindness. That is enough to begin." The ship arrived at a massive space station orbiting a bright blue planet. Towers of glass and steel reached high into the sky, and glowing ships moved in and out of docking bays. Alira guided Tom through crowded corridors filled with beings of every shape and color. He had never seen anything like it. "This is my capital," Alira said proudly. "Here, decisions are made that affect millions. And soon, you will see why your insight is important." Tom's eyes widened. He noticed groups of officials speaking in hurried tones, holographic maps floating between them, showing fleets, territories, and enemy movements. The weight of responsibility was clear. Alira led him to a council chamber, where her advisors waited. Tall, armored, and serious, they looked at Tom with curiosity and some with thinly hidden doubt. "Your Majesty," one said cautiously, "this human, how can he contribute? Our problems are complex. He is not trained in strategy or diplomacy." Alira's gaze was firm. "He has seen courage and cleverness in ways you cannot imagine. Do not underestimate him. I trust his judgment." Another advisor frowned. "Majesty, he is just a simple human. Should we not focus on matters that concern our empire?" Alira's eyes narrowed slightly. "Sometimes, the simplest minds see things the greatest minds miss. We will see what he can do." Tom shifted nervously. He felt out of place, surrounded by beings who could command fleets and civilizations. He wondered if he had made a mistake by coming. Alira noticed. She put a hand on his shoulder. "Do not be afraid, Tom. You are here because you are needed. Trust yourself." Over the next few hours, Tom learned about the Empire. He saw reports of neighboring factions threatening border territories, and internal disputes among noble families that could destabilize regions. Alira's people were strong and advanced, but they were also proud and sometimes stubborn. "Why do you need me?" Tom finally asked. Alira looked at him. "Because sometimes, we see only what we are trained to see. You look at the world differently. You solve problems in ways that no one else expects. That perspective can make the difference between failure and success." Tom swallowed hard. He had never thought of himself as important. Now he realized that his life, his experiences, even his quiet work on Earth could matter on a scale he never imagined. During their tour, Tom noticed tension in the council. Some advisors whispered when Alira turned away. Their skepticism was clear. He realized he had to prove himself not by words but by action. "Don't worry about them," Alira said, sensing his thoughts. "Some will take time to understand. Others may never believe. Focus on what we can do together." As they walked through the hallways, Alira showed Tom plans for supply lines, communication networks, and defense strategies. She explained the challenges her people faced, some of which had no easy solutions. Tom listened carefully. Though the technology and scale were unlike anything he had seen, he began to notice patterns, small details the advisors missed. Simple ideas, clever solutions, small adjustments that could prevent mistakes or save resources. Alira noticed his focus. "You are already seeing things they do not," she said softly. Tom nodded. I think I understand. It's like a puzzle. Sometimes the pieces are obvious, but the hidden ones make all the difference." Alira smiled. "Exactly. That is why you are here. You may be human, but your mind is valuable to me and to my people." The day ended with Tom sitting in a quiet chamber, looking at the stars again. He thought of Earth, of his small town, his repair shop, and the life he had left behind. But now, he also thought of Alira, of her people, and of the trust the Queen had placed in him. He understood one thing clearly: his life had changed forever. And somewhere deep inside, he felt ready. Ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might bring, beside the Queen he had once saved as a child. The war had spread across the Queen's empire like a burning storm. Every day brought new reports of enemy fleets attacking border worlds, taking resources, and leaving fear behind. Inside the royal halls, voices argued louder than ever. Many of the Queen's council members doubted her choices. Some even whispered that trusting a human was foolish. Arun stood quietly as the council shouted around him. He was not a noble, not a soldier, not even an officer. He was only a human mechanic, yet he was standing inside the great council chamber of an alien empire. The queen sat on her throne, her calm face hiding the storm in her heart. She knew her people needed unity, but divisions were growing. "Your Majesty," one elder said sharply, pointing at Arun, "this human cannot be trusted. He is an outsider. Our enemies laugh at us because you place faith in him." Arun's dark eyes stayed steady. He did not reply. He had no interest in defending himself with words. He believed actions spoke louder. The queen finally raised her hand, silencing the chamber. Her voice was firm. "You forget," she said, "that when I was a child, he saved my life. And now, in our darkest time, he has saved us again with his plans. Without him, 3 of our fleets would already be destroyed." Her words echoed in the chamber. Some lowered their heads, ashamed. Others still glared with doubt. But the queen's decision was final. She would keep Arun by her side. That night, Arun walked alone through the palace gardens. He could hear distant thunder, but it was not weather, it was the deep sound of enemy ships cutting through the atmosphere. He knew another attack was coming soon. As he looked up at the alien stars, he thought about how strange life was. Years ago, he had saved a child without even thinking about it. Now that child was a queen, and the future of her people rested on his choices. The queen joined him quietly. She wore no crown, only a simple cloak, her face softer under the starlight. "You are troubled," she said. "I am only thinking," Arun answered. "Your people doubt me. And maybe they are right. I am not a soldier. I am only one man." The queen shook her head. "No. You are the reason we still have hope. My people cannot see it yet, but I do." They stood in silence, the sound of the night broken by the distant hum of warships preparing for battle. The attack came at dawn. Enemy fleets entered orbit and rained fire down upon the capital's defenses. The palace shook as walls cracked and towers fell. Soldiers ran through the halls, calling orders and rushing to the front lines. Arun and the queen were escorted to the command center deep inside the palace. Maps of the battlefield glowed across the room. Generals shouted reports of heavy losses. Suddenly, a message arrived: enemy strike teams had landed near the palace itself. Their goal was clear: capture or kill the queen. The generals panicked, unsure how to defend so many weak points at once. Arun stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "Divide your forces, and you will lose everything. Keep the army defending the main gates. I will take a small group and stop the strike teams myself." The generals stared in disbelief. "You? A human? You would risk the queen's life?" But the queen's eyes never left Arun's face. She saw the same courage she remembered from childhood, the same spirit that had once carried her out of danger. "You will not go alone," she said. "I will go with you." "No," Arun replied firmly. "If you fall, your people will break. You must stay here. Trust me, as you did long ago." Her heart ached, but she nodded. Arun led a handful of palace guards into the burning corridors. Smoke filled the air. Shadows moved quickly. Enemy soldiers had already entered. Blaster fire lit the halls. Arun fought not with advanced weapons, but with his mind. He ordered guards to collapse walls, use smoke for cover, and lead the enemy into narrow traps. His simple tricks confused and slowed the attackers. But the enemy was strong and well armed. In one hallway, a blast ripped through the wall, and Arun shielded 2 young guards with his body, pulling them to safety. His shoulder burned with pain, but he refused to stop. The queen's voice echoed in his mind: "You saved me once. You saved me again. Do not fall now." Finally, After hours of fighting, Arun and the guards cornered the last strike team. The palace shook one final time as enemy ships retreated, realizing their mission had failed. Exhausted and wounded, Arun stood among the ruins. The guards cheered, calling him a hero. But Arun only shook his head. "I did what anyone should do," he said simply. When he returned to the queen, she ran to him, breaking her usual calm. For the first time, she let the council see her true feelings. "You risked everything again," she whispered. "Why?" Arun looked at her. His answer was quiet but strong. "Because long ago, I made a choice. To save you. That choice never ended." The queen placed her hand over his wounded arm. Her eyes shone with unspoken gratitude. The council, who had doubted him for so long, now bowed their heads in respect. In that moment, trust was no longer a question. Arun had proven, through sacrifice, that one human's courage could hold the weight of an empire. The capital world was scarred by fire and smoke, but it still stood. The Queen's empire had survived the enemy's strike, thanks to Arun and the guards who fought beside him. Yet everyone knew the war was not over. The enemy fleets gathered again in the outer systems, planning one last attack to crush the Queen's rule forever. Inside the command hall, the Queen faced her generals. Maps glowed with enemy formations stretching across the stars. Many believed the empire had no strength left for another battle. Supplies were low, ships were damaged, and soldiers were weary. The Queen looked at Arun, standing quietly at her side. His arm was still bound with cloth from the wounds he had taken, but his eyes were steady. "We cannot run," she said. "If we fall back, our people will lose faith. We must face them now, no matter the cost." A silence fell. The generals shifted uneasily. Then Arun spoke. "They believe they are stronger," he said simply. "That is their weakness. They do not expect us to fight in a way they cannot predict. If we use surprise, we can turn their strength into a trap." The generals leaned closer. For the first time, they listened with respect instead of doubt. Arun laid out his plan: lure the enemy deep into the system, then strike their supply ships hidden behind the battle lines. Without fuel and resources, their great fleets would collapse. The Queen gave her approval. Every soldier in the chamber bowed their heads, ready to fight one last time. The day of the final battle arrived. The Queen's fleets rose from the burned docks of the capital, their wings shining against the stars. Arun stood aboard the flagship beside the Queen. The enemy came in numbers greater than anyone had imagined. Thousands of ships darkened the skies, their weapons glowing like fire. The Queen's people trembled, but her voice rose clear across the calm lines: "We fight not for power, but for our home. Stand firm, and trust in one another." The fleets clashed. Space burned with fire and light. Enemy cruisers pressed forward, crushing the Queen's outer defenses. Arun's plan was dangerous. If it failed, the empire would be lost. At the signal, a small group of fast ships broke from the main line. Guided by Arun's idea, they slipped through hidden routes and reached the rear of the enemy formation. There, they struck the supply carriers with sudden force. Explosions spread through the dark void, tearing fuel tanks and shattering cargo holds. The enemy command panicked. Their great fleets, once so confident, began to break apart. Without fuel, many ships drifted powerless. Others fled in disorder. The Queen's soldiers, seeing the enemy falter, fought with new strength. On the flagship's bridge, cheers filled the air. The Queen watched as enemy ships burned and scattered. Yet her eyes remained on Arun. He had given them the plan that saved them all. But the battle was not yet finished. The enemy flagship pushed forward in desperation, a giant vessel armed with weapons enough to destroy whole cities. It fired directly toward the Queen's ship. "Shields cannot hold against that," a general shouted. Arun stepped forward. "Then we must move first." Aim all weapons at their control tower. Strike before they can fire again. The Queen gave the order. The flagship's guns roared. Light burst across space as the enemy command ship shuddered, cracked, and finally exploded into a brilliant fire. The last of the enemy fleet fled. The war was over. When the fleets returned, the people of the Empire filled the streets with joy. For the first time in many years, they saw hope. The Queen stood before them on the high balcony of her palace, her voice carried across the city. Today we survived not because of numbers, not because of weapons, but because of courage. A human named Arun gave us the strength to see victory. From this day forward, humans shall no longer be seen as outsiders. They will stand with us as friends and allies. The crowd cheered, their voices rising like thunder. Soldiers bowed their heads in respect to the man who had once been doubted. Arun himself stood quietly behind the Queen, humbled by their gratitude. Later, in the stillness of the evening, the Queen and Arun walked together through the gardens. The fires of war had ended, and the stars above shone bright again. "You saved me once as a child," the Queen said softly. "Then you saved me again when all seemed lost. I cannot imagine my life, or my people's future, without your courage." Arun looked at her. His words were simple, but they carried the truth of his heart. "I never thought I was special. I only did what I could. But perhaps, humans are stronger than even we know." The Queen smiled, her eyes shining with quiet warmth. "Stronger, yes. Not because of weapons or power, but because of spirit. And that is what makes you different." Together they stood, watching the horizon glow with the first light of dawn. The Empire was no longer broken. A new age had begun, an age where humans and aliens would share the stars, side by side. And as the sun rose, the Queen knew that her people would remember this truth for all time: one human's courage had saved an empire, and his story would live forever.